Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today we're talking about episode 109, Fair Weather Fran. As usual, we'll start with a brief summary of the episode. With Yetta's wedding drawing ever closer, the reverberations are felt up and down the Fine family. Fran is jealous that her 85-year-old grandmother is getting married before her, and Sylvia is upset that her father is being replaced, not even 25 years after he died. Cece is upset that she is the only person in the Sheffield orbit who did not get an invitation to Yetta's engagement party, so she ends up unknowingly agreeing to man the Klingon booth at the Star Trek convention with Brighton. Sammy, Yetta's fiance, meets Fran and Sylvia for the first time, and Sylvia only begins to warm up to him upon learning that Bryant Gumbel is his nephew. Meanwhile, Dr. Miller encourages Fran to pursue her non-matrimonial dreams, so Fran decides to try to become a TV weather girl. Unfortunately, Maxwell is, shall we say, less than supportive. Sammy connects Fran with his nephew, and however, Bryant Gumbel's show doesn't actually have a weather girl position, so Fran interviews for an open editorial commentator position. It does not go well. Maxwell then admits that he was afraid of losing Fran, which made her feel better. Bernadette, do you have anything you want to add?
I do not.
All right, would you like to take us to scene one?
Yes, so we're opening this episode in the kitchen. Fran, Maggie, and Sylvia are all in there. And Maggie tells Fran and Sylvia, because how lucky, that Yetta is getting married at her age. I mean, do you know the odds of a woman over 35 finding a husband? And immediately Sylvia says 1 in 1,245.6.
Yeah.
And Fran's like, uh-huh. How much do you weigh, Ma? And Sylvia's like, who can remember numbers? At this time, Yetta comes in through the side door singing like a virgin. Hoi! And Fran's like, you know, I want whatever you're on. And Yetta kind of in her little fanny pack starts pulling out different bottles. This is for inflammation. This is for spastic colon. I have an ounce of glaucoma medication that my doctor grew, but I don't use it because it gets me kind of loose. And Fran kind of has a look on her face. You mean sexually? And Yetta's just like, no. And then Yetta continues to sing, touched for the very first time. And Sylvia's like, look at her, all a Twitter, like an 85-year-old schoolgirl. And, Fran tells Sylvia, oh, well, at least you can dance at your mother's wedding because at this rate, you'll be coming to mine in an urn. There, I said it before you did. At that time, the doorbell rings. And Yetta's like, oh, that's him. And she's so excited. She feels like flying on gossamer wings as she slowly makes her way out of the kitchen. We have kind of a cut, but I counted this as all one scene.
I agree.
And again, we see Fran and Sylvia on the staircase kind of playing cards. And meanwhile, the doorbell rings again, and Sylvia, or Yet is slowly making her way to the door. And she answers it, and there's Samala. And he greets her as my Yiddish mama.
Yiddish. You missed the last syllable.
Oh, sorry. And Fran looks over to Sylvia and says, "This is a first. Your mouth is open, and there is no chewed up snack wells in it. Snack wells?
Snack wells.
Is that
Yep.
correct? Yep.
Yep.
And Sylvia says, Ma, when you told us you were engaged, you neglected to mention that he's black. And Yetta turns to Sam, you're black? And he says, yes. And then Yetta gets this kind of expression on her face and she goes, no wonder.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we find out that Sam is black. Shall we save it for notable New Yorkers, or shall we reveal who Sam is?
Up to you. I'll defer to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it.
Okay. I mean, there's
It's
a
Ray
middle ground.
Charles.
Yep. was gonna say there's a middle ground we could go with. Just he's very famous and leave it at
Yeah. But I mean, it kind of puts into context,
who he
like
is.
some of the later scenes.
Yep.
So, yeah, he's Ray Charles. And that's the opening scene. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
I do not.
Okay. Can you take us to Dr. Miller's office?
I'd love to. So we're in Dr. Miller's office, and Fran is in session with him, and she explains to him that she had the weirdest dream last night. That Grandma Yetta was running down a football field carrying a bridal bouquet, and Count Basie was waiting for her in the end zone when Miss Piggy comes by carrying a very lean corned beef sandwich and says, "You're not getting any younger." And she kind of looks at him expectantly, and he says, "Well, clearly the dream indicates that you are bitter and upset at the fact that your 85-year-old grandmother is getting married for the second time when you haven't been married once." My friend's like, "Really?" Now, you see, I just thought I had a thing for jazz and the Muppets. And so Dr. Miller advises her to shift her focus. Now, isn't there anything in your life besides marriage that you're passionate about? Like some inner dream that you've always kept secret? And Fran's like, "You mean like my deepest, darkest fantasy?" And he's like, he leans forward, "Want to tell me about it?" Or actually, he sits up, "Want to tell me about it?" She's like, "Well, it's a little freaky." He leans forward, "That's good." I mean, he leans back. "I mean, that's all right, Fran. It's never too late to follow a dream. Now, you've got to stop dwelling on all the things that aren't working in your life. Start making the things that you want to happen happen." And Fran's like, "You know what, Doc? You are absolutely right. I'm going to stop obsessing on wanting to be married and follow my dream. From here on in, I'm going to set a path where I'm going to be a more interesting, mature, independent woman. Maybe then he'll propose."
Mhm.
Still a
Yep.
back mind, even when she's told to think of other things.
Yep.
Do you have anything you want
Yep.
to add?
I do not.
All right. Would you like to take us to the office?
Yes. So we are in the office. Maxwell, Cece, and Niles are there, and Cece is looking through the mail. Oh, here's your invitation to Yetta's engagement party at the home. Like, now don't be late. Dinner starts promptly at 2. And she goes on, I cannot think of a more nauseous and making, mind numbing evening. And says, well, I'm going. And Cece's like, me too. Where's mine? And Niles is like, oh, I'm sorry. The maximum capacity at the home is 640. It was between you and the woman handing out Jimmy Dean samples at the A&P yesterday. And Cece's like, I'm not invited? Okay, fine. Because I've got lots of better things to do. Yetta! Where's my pretty Yetta? And she goes off to theoretically like schmooze her way into getting an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, Fran walks in, and Fran declares to Maxwell that she has decided to pursue a successful, you know, pursue a dream, be a successful career woman. She's going to have direction, goal, a clear path. And Maxwell's like, I thought you wanted to get married and have children. And she's like, wait, are you asking? Because I could check that other pipe dream.
Yup.
And of course, it's like, yeah, right. He's not. So um, she goes on to say that that pipe dream is to become a TV weather girl. To
Mm-hmm.
which Maxwell says, oh, that's a perfect job for you. You'd be wonderful at that. And Fran's like, oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. At that moment, Gracie walks in. Daddy, I loved my lesson. I want to become a jockey. And Maxwell's like, oh, I think that'd be a perfect job for you. You'd be wonderful at that. And Gracie leaves. And so Fran gets that look on her face like, what just happened here? You're just humoring me. You no more think I could be a weather girl than you think Gracie could be a jockey. And Maxwell's like, well, of course I do. I mean, you're beautiful and photogenic, and she's short. And Fran goes on, Mr. Sheffield, I'm not a child. I'm going to be 30. Now I can handle honesty. And Maxwell's like, oh no, Miss Fine. No, you can't. Fran's like, well, why don't you just try me? And Maxwell says, I don't think you could be a TV weather girl. To which Fran immediately cries, why? And Max was like, well, let's start with your voice and a microphone. And Fran's like, there's a fine line between honest and cruel. And Maxwell says, "Oh, Miss Fine, it's unrealistic. I'm not being cruel, am I, Niles?" And we hear over the intercom Niles say, "Absolutely not, sir. She asked for the truth." And Fran's like, "Niles." And Niles is like, "Sorry, Miss Fine. Christmas is coming."
Mhm.
So Fran says, "Well, I know what's going on here. You're just terrified that I might become immensely successful, leave you, and your whole world will fall apart." And Maxwell's like, "Well, that's a tad arrogant, don't you think? I wouldn't dream of keeping you here just to satisfy my own selfish needs." And Fred's like, "Oh, really? Well, I've got news for you. There is no hope for us, mister." And she marches out. And Maxwell seems a bit dazed by this. And he approaches the intercom. He's like, "Okay, what just happened here?" And now says, "Well, let's review, sir." And then we hear the sound of a tape rewinding. Is there
Okay.
anything you'd like to add to that?
No.
Okay, can you take us to the next scene?
Yeah, so we're in the foyer slash living room. The doorbell rings, and we see Fran and Sylvia, one coming from the living room, or I guess the back, and one coming down the stairs. And they both say, "If that's my mother, tell her I'm not here."
Uh huh.
So the door opens, and it's Sammy and Yetta. And Sammy says to Fran that he loves her voice. "I knew where the house was before I even got out of the car." And so
Hmm.
Sylvia greets Sammy and her mother very formally. "Hello, Samuel, mother." And Fran tells, Sammy and Yetta to go take a seat in the living room. "We'll catch up with you in a minute." And they say, "Okay, whatever." And Fran's just like, "Go take a seat. Send up a flare when you get to the couch." And Fran turns to
Hmm.
her mother and is like, "Ma, why are you being so cold to them? Is it because he's black?" And Sylvie's like, "Please, I, of all people, am not prejudiced. You forget, I come from a time when the Jews were kept out of the Oyster Bay Country Club." And Fran's like, "Just you, Ma. And that's because you stole a steak." And Sylvia starts to explain, why I'm upset? My father is not even dead 25 years, and already she's running off with another man. And Fran's like, "They're not running anywhere, Ma." And we see like Sammy and Yetta walking, shuffling, shall we say, very
Yeah.
slowly.
Yeah.
And Sylvia's like, "I'm sorry, I can't accept this." And Fran's like, "Look, I also had problems with Yetta getting married before me, but I channeled my anxieties into a new career. And that's what you're going to have to do. You got to find something new in your life and then focus on that." And Sylvia's like, "Well, I haven't tried the Viennetta love from the Friars people," which, side note, seems like an interesting, career choice.
Uh
Um,
huh.
and so Maxwell comes in and he introduces himself to Sammy. And he says, "Hello there, Maxwell Sheffield. You must be Sammy." To which Sammy says, "Yes. And you must be Fran's husband." Fran turns to
Uh-huh.
her mother, "Warming up to him yet, Ma?" And Sylvia's like, "I will never accept another man as my father." And so Fran says to Sammy, "You're a little confused, sweetie. Mr. Sheffield is not my husband. He's just the killer of Weather Girl dreams." And Max is like, "Would you
Hmm.
please get off that, Miss Fine?" And she stands her ground and says that he is the killer of Weather Girl dreams. And he disagrees that he's not. He's like, "You cannot just expect to walk in off the street and straight into broadcasting." And Sammy chimes in that, "My nephew works down at the television station. Maybe he can help you out." And Max is like, "Well, there's your in, Miss Fine." And he's like, "Do you think I should look for another nanny?" And Sammy continues with, "Bill, maybe you know him, Bryant Gumbel." And
Hmm.
everyone's like, "Bryant Gumbel's your nephew?" To which Sylvia says, "Papa!" And welcomes him with open arms.
Yep. Classic.
Yeah.
So we then jump to Fran's room. Val, Fran, and Gracie are all in there, and they're working on like cue cards and stuff. And Val says, if Bryant Gumbel hires you, doing weather could just be, the beginning." And Fran's like, "I know. You know the movie Up Close and Personal? Michelle Pfeiffer started out as a weather girl, and look who she became." And Val's like, "Who?" And Fran's like, "Well, Michelle Pfeiffer for one thing." And
Hmm.
then she kind of indicates for her to go, go over there with the cue cards. And she indicates that Gracie should kind of come up with something cute and then throw it to her. So Gracie is sitting at like kind of like a plastic, it looks like a very young child's like table, wouldn't you say?
Agreed. Yes.
It seemed a bit odd. But anyway, she's sitting at that table and she goes, "Today, President Clinton and Chinese President Zemin," I'm sorry if I mispronounce it. Just signed a pact eliminating nuclear proliferation in the Far East. And Val says, she talks good. And
Yup.
Gracie continues, and now let's go to everyone's favorite weather girl, Fran. Fair skies fine. Fran? And Fran's like, thank you, Grace. Well, it's going to be a crisp, delicious day in the tri state area. So my forecast would be to wear something playful and autumny. And she holds up like a Barbie doll that's like dressed in a little outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And she continues, but if you happen to be single and there's a cold front coming, ladies, I would wear this. And she holds up another like Barbie in like a swimsuit.
Wasn't
And
it
she
the
says,
same Barbie? Didn't she like rip the dress off the
oh,
Barbie?
maybe. I didn't pay too close attention. But yeah, suffice to say, she's holding up a Barbie that's wearing a swimsuit. And she says, God willing, you'd get a pneumonia, which I thought was funny that she said a pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And 1, 2, 3, you'll meet a nice doctor. And that's Fran Fine's practice weather thing. Is there anything you'd like to add to that scene?
Uh, I'll save it for later. So no.
Okay. Okay.
So we're now out of Fran's room, and I think we're in the foyer, and Maxwell is telling Niles to take out his tuxedo. Would you? I have to go down to my lawyer's office, which seems sort of different to me. And Niles says, sir, that's right near the studio where Miss Fine is auditioning. You might want to drop by and ruin everything. And Max is like, would you just stop it? You really think that I'm that insecure? Look, even if Miss Fine gets the job, that doesn't mean she's necessarily going to leave us. And in walks Gracie, ready, Daddy. And Max was like, all right, sweetheart, let's go over it one more time. And Gracie's like, okay, Fran, I really miss you. And you have to come home because I'm afraid to be alone. And Max was like, excellent, excellent. Now remember, wait for my signal. And he like rubs under his nose to like show what the signal is. She's like, okay.
Mhm.
He's like, you
It's
got
not
it?
very subtle, is it?
No, not at all. But she has it, so that's good. And she comments, I can't believe you're using me to manipulate someone like this. It's so Fran. And Maxwell's like, thank you, sweetheart.
Hmm. Yep. So then we are now in the studio. And Fran, of course, immediately, as she often does, is very effusive. I can't talk tonight. Saying, "Oh, Brian Gumble, oh, Brian Gumble," and he's kind of taken aback. Um, but again, she just starts talking, how Uncle Sammy got them together. She's so glad they got to meet before the wedding. She'll have to make sure that he sits between her and Ma so that he's not surrounded by a bunch of nuts. And of course, immediately she sees someone in the distance. Ah, Leslie Stahl, is this all? Oh, Leslie, I love you. Like she's just yelling. And then she kind of says to Bryant, like, is that her real hair? And then she kind of looks around. So where's my weather set? He's like, what weather set? Bryant's like, the one where the temperatures and the maps and the clouds that keep rolling over and over. And Bryant's like, Fran, we don't have a weather set on the show. Bryant's like, no weather girl? Oh, but that's what I'm here for. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider? Because I got an Aunt Ida with a Nielsen box. And Brian's like, we do have an opening for an editorial commentator. Would you be interested in auditioning? And Brian's like, sure, I'd go for it. Whatever the hell that means. She mumbles to herself. So Bryant tells like some, assistant, let's get her on tape. And he asks Fran, do you need a hairdresser? And Fran, was like, oh, is it too subdued for TV? And Bryant kind of mutters it might not fit on TV. Is
Mm-hmm.
there anything you'd like to add to that?
No.
Okay.
So we're now back in the Sheffield home, and we're by the staircase. And Cece trips Brighton, calling him boy. Come here. Are you taking anyone to this thing on Saturday night? And he's like, well, let's see. Am I taking a date or am I taking? And he holds out his hand. And Cece puts money in it. He says, you. And she says, Saturday. And he nods, and Cece walks away. And Niles, I think, comes down the stairs and he says, says to Brighton, "Does she know that you're not going to Yetta's party, but that she'll be helping you man the Klingon booth at the Star Trek convention?" And Brighton's like, "No, but I mean, maybe I should tell her. It's just so cruel." And he holds out his hand again. Niles puts money in it. He looks at it. Brighton looks at it and says, "It's a wee bit crueler than that, Captain." And I think Niles gives him more money.
Yep.
All right, you ready to take us back to the studio?
Yes. So we're back at the studio, and Brian's like, ready to do this? And they're like sitting, both of them sitting kind of on set. And Brian's like, absolutely. And Brian's like, I'm giving you a topic off I'll give you a topic off the top of my head, and you'll just run with it. And Brian's like, no problemo. And Brian just says, gene therapy. And Brian's like, gene therapy? Got it. So then you have the assistant, Fran Fine test rolling, and Fran looks into the camera. Hi, I'm Fran Fine. How are you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to do an editorial commentary on gene therapy. Well, if you want my opinion, I think there's nothing more therapeutic than slipping into a pair of jeans that make your tush look hot in a pair of ooh la la sassoons. Anywho, I would just slip into those babies whenever I wanted to lift my spirits or my grade point average. And she winks at the camera. Well, that's it for now. This is Fran Fine signing off. Zes gesund. Go
Zygazent.
with, huh?
Zygazent.
Okay, I just based it off of the closed captioning. But yeah,
Fair.
go with God. And then Brian immediately is like, no, 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 no. And Fred's like, no. Is it the hair? Oh, I knew I shouldn't have I shouldn't have tried someone new. And Brian's like, Fran, gene therapy is the alteration of our genes by scientists. And Fran's like, but why would you go to a scientist when any cleaner could put up a hem and they've got to charge more? And Brian's like, no, no, not those kind of genes. DNA, genetics, our cellular infrastructure. And Fran goes, oh. And she turns back to the camera. Never mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine, and she smiles, and Brian says, "Thank you. We'll be in touch." And of course, she's like, "Oh, thank you, Brian Gamble." And as he's walking away, he tells the assistant, "Uncle or no uncle, I'm having him committed."
Yep.
Um, did you consider the next bit a new scene?
No, I consider it the same.
Okay. So off to the side, a lady approaches Fran, and Fran's kind of by the craft food table, and the lady asks for the security pass back, and Fran's like, "Won't I need it for tomorrow?" And the lady shakes her head no. And the lady follows up, and the box of donuts. And so under her coat, like Fran pulls out the box of donuts. She says, they're the lemon filled kind. Nobody eats those. But the lady takes it away. And at that moment, Gracie and Maxwell walk in. And Fran says to Maxwell, oh, Mr. Sheffield, it was horrible. And Maxwell's like, oh, what happened? And Fran's like, that mean lady took my donuts. And
Yeah.
Maxwell's like, no, I mean, what happened at the audition? How did it go? Fran's like, oh, they didn't need a weather girl. They wanted an editorial commentator. And Maxwell's like, yikes. Well, I mean, not in the most supportive way, of course. And Fran's like, it doesn't matter. You're right. You know, feel free to dump all over my dreams next time. And Maxwell's like, no, I have a confession. The reason he went there in the first place is he was terrified that she would succeed. He's like, I came up with a rather elaborate ruse to make sure to get you back. Watch this. And he starts doing that motion under his nose,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing happens. Does it again, very vigorously, nothing happens. So he has to go, Gracie. And Gracie turns around, and I believe she has a bunch of like Pop Tart in her mouth.
She's a lot of food, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's just like, "Fran, I really missed you," like mouthful of stuff as she starts saying what they had practiced. And Max was like, never mind." But Fran's like, "Oh, that's so sweet." Um, but a word of advice, if you're gonna have a child manipulate an adult, you need to give them protein, not carbs, or else they lose their concentration. And then she's like, "Why couldn't that be my category? I could have been the next Connie Chung Povich.
Yep.
Um, and so they're going to leave, and she's like, "Wait a minute," and she grabs the donuts to take with her. Did you consider the next bit a part of this as well,
No,
or
I considered it separate.
okay, go for it.
So we're back at the television studio, and Sammy is there, and he's saying that he's there to meet his nephew for lunch, Bryant Gumbel. And he says, and my little girl is anxious to meet him. And out walks Sylvia, who looks very excited and sort of sheepish. And she grabs his arm, puts her head on his shoulder, and says, "This is my daddy."
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So the final scene is we're in the Sheffield living room, but it's like very there's a mood going on. It's like candlelit.
Yep.
Sam and Yetta are at the piano. Sam's playing the piano. He finishes up his little, first song, and Yetta's like, "That was gorgeous." Um, and then Sam's like, "Oh well, let me play my favorite," and he starts playing and he sings, um,
You want me to
"My
sing
Yiddische Mama." Is it Yiddische?
Yiddish? Yeah.
Yiddische Mama, I need her more than ever now. My Yiddische Mama, I'd love to kiss that wrinkled brow. I long to hold her hands once more as the days gone by. Mm, 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 mm. And at the end, like Yetta kisses him on the cheek.
Correct.
And that's the episode.
That is the episode. Bernadette, is there anything you want to talk about um, before we get into our sticks?
I was curious, what you thought of Sylvia's initial reaction.
Not ideal,
Nope.
obviously. And
Yeah.
I, on the one hand, understand where she's coming from as like the daughter of a deceased dad. Like,
Mhm.
it would be very hard for someone to, it'd be very painful for someone to try to fill her dad's shoes. But at the same
Mhm.
time, it's like she's old enough and she is mature enough and her, and like settled enough that I don't think Sammy is trying to take her dad's place, but
Mhm.
instead he's providing companionship and love to her mother, which she should want because she should want her mother to be happy.
Mhm.
What did you think?
Specifically, it was the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but she hadn't really expressed that sentiment. I mean, we've
No,
known that Yetta's engaged for a while, right?
correct. And I mean, Sylvia's reaction basically has been, so Fran had asked Sylvia, have you met Sammy before in a previous episode? And Sylvia was like, what's to meet? He's just one of the alpacacas in the home. Like, there's nothing special about him.
Mhm.
And like, so that sort of indicated that she had met him, but apparently she hadn't. And I think we talked about that previously, and that's kind of weird.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
again, how it like played out was just very awkward and really did seem like, cuz the first thing she says is, like, "You didn't tell us he's black," which immediately, like, the tone of that was just like, "What?" Or, like, because I don't know. Later she says it's not because of that, but, like, the fact that they made that the first thing and the first time she really, like, gets into, "I'm not accepting him,"
right.
um, was, like, very, if it wasn't, like, it made it seem like it was racist.
It did. It,
Um,
absolutely.
and so that was, like, very awkward. And then, like, later her saying, "Oh, I can't be racist." Uh, that argument's not really, like,
Valid.
accurate because, again, there are minorities who can be like that to other minorities as well. Um,
Right.
like, people have prejudices regardless of, like, sometimes people even have, like, prejudice for their own,
Mhm.
race or whatever, like, it's not exclusive, but, I'm not explaining that very well. But
Right.
I just wish
Just
that
because
there
you're
had been more groundwork to the fact that she was just in general feeling uncomfortable with having her mother marry someone versus it first coming out really with, "Oh, you didn't tell us he's black," you know?
Yeah, it doesn't sit well.
Yeah. Thank you. To sum it up, it doesn't sit well. Um, but yeah. So, did you have anything?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Fran's mock weather girl advice as to what you thought of that. Wear something, colorful and nice, but if you're single, I'd wear this. You'll catch yourself a good pneumonia. One, two, three, you'll meet a nice doctor.
No. I would not say that's good advice.
It's definitely colorful advice.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I could definitely see Fran being like a quirky, like, that being her shtick. If people just took it for fun, like, but she's kind of serious. Like, it's not just a shtick to her, if that makes sense. Like, that's her advice.
Well, I mean, it makes me think back to the episode in season three, A Close Shave, where Maggie was a candy striper. And
Uh-huh.
um, Fran took her to the hospital to check in, and the nurse triage person asked her, can I help you? And Fran said, yeah, I need a doctor. Oh, what are your symptoms? I'm over 30 and single. Haha. Sorry, I'm 30 and single. And she laughs, and the woman's like, yeah, 30. Haha. So I mean, even when Fran is pursuing this additional dream, she's so focused on getting married. It's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I guess the other thing I wanted to mention is like, yeah, when Maxwell first is like, "Oh, you'd be terrific at it," I was like, "Oh no, he doesn't mean that." Even though he like acted like it, because I was like, that doesn't sound like Maxwell.
Right, and then he
Because
used the exact
unfortunately, he hasn't been supportive before.
correct. And he used the exact same tone with Fran as he did with Gracie, which is
Yeah,
what tipped her off finally.
yeah, and again, I agree with Fran's sentiment that there's a fine line between honest and cruel.
Mhm.
Um, because again, just because someone wants you to be honest with them, it doesn't mean that you have to be like very blunt and like again cruel with how you're saying something, right?
Right.
So, so yeah. Anything else you kind of want to address before we get into our shticks?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. So favorite fashion, did you have any this episode?
No. Although I will say I thought it was interesting that Fran went to the network and she was wearing a yellow raincoat and her hair was, you know, big and then I know we had someone do her hair, but then she switched to the like sleek sleek hair with the big white headband and the black and white outfit, which did not look like it was under her raincoat originally. So I just thought that was interesting. I didn't really care for anything she wore this episode. How about you?
Yeah, same. I wasn't super impressed by anything. And again, there was like that green seemed very like plasticky,
Yes,
that
it did.
jacket.
And the matching
Um,
skirt. Yeah.
yeah, which is not really my aesthetic.
Yeah.
So,
It is hers,
all
but
right.
it's not my favorite of her
Mhm.
various types of outfits.
And again, I will note that there was several different hairstyles again.
Hmm.
In this episode, because I believe it starts out the episode like she's wearing some type of wig with like bangs,
Hmm.
and then she, obviously has her big hair for like when she goes to the studio and stuff. Um, but yeah, it just kind of changes. I'd be curious to know if there's a backstory to why there's so many different like hairstyles.
That I do not know.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say just for fun, but I don't know.
Mm. Okay, are you ready for some notable New Yorkers?
I am.
Okay.
Do you want to
Um,
start with Ray Charles himself?
sure.
Oh no. I asked that and then I realized I did not actually put him on my list because I was
Because it was so, like, obvious.
like,
Like, "Oh, yeah, it's Ray Charles."
Yeah, Ray Charles, he's a famous singer. He passed away in 2004. He has a very distinctive voice.
Hmm.
Um, he was born in 1930. He was a singer, songwriter, and pianist. According to friends at Wikipedia, he's regarded as one of the most iconic and influential singers in history. That was a quote. He was referred to as the genius.
Ooh.
Yeah. Apparently, he was blinded during childhood. That's the other thing to note about him.
Yeah. Does it say how that occurred?
According to our friends at Wikipedia, it was possibly due to glaucoma.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's ironic then that like Yetta makes a comment about the glaucoma medication. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah. So in the opening scene though, Yetta also sings Like a Virgin by Madonna.
Yep.
Um, again, we have Ray Charles. And then we have Count Bali, Bailey,
Basie.
Bali,
Basie.
Basie. Sorry, my handwriting, man, Basie.
An American jazz bandleader, composer, organist, and pianist known for the Count Basie Orchestra. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia. You also missed Snackwells.
Oh yeah.
That they were a line of fat-free cookies released by Nabisco in 1992, discontinued in 2022. That's according to our friends at Sport.
Mm. Miss Piggy.
A Muppet character known for her, and I quote, temperamental diva superstar personality, comma, tendency to use French phrases in her speech, and practice of karate, and her relationship, of course, with Kermit the Frog. And that's according to our
Mhm.
friends at Wikipedia.
Did you put Jazz along with the Muppets or no?
I just
Just
put
the
the
Muppets.
Muppets.
Okay.
And I quote, an American ensemble cast of puppet characters known for an absurdist, burlesque, and self referential style of variety sketch comedy. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Did you put Jimmy Dean?
I did. That's a reference to the Jimmy Dean Meat Company, which was started in 1969 by Jimmy Dean, and it's known for its breakfast foods. That's according to our friends at jimmydean.com.
Did you put A&P?
I did. It's a defunct grocery store that we've spoken about previously.
Okay. Um, did you put Jockey or no?
I did not.
Okay. Because for clarification, it's a horse jockey, not a DJ jockey. Radio jockey. It's yeah. Anyway, uh let's see here. Uh the do you have the Veneta log?
Yeah, the vanilla, whatever. It's a British ice cream dessert featuring layers of ice cream and chocolate. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Briars?
An American ice cream brand which produced its first gallon of ice cream in, do you want to try to guess the year or should I just tell you?
Go ahead.
1866.
Oh wow.
That's according to our friends at Briars.com.
Hmm. Bryant Gumbel.
An American TV journalist and sportscaster who is known for co-hosting Today. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Up close and personal.
A 1996 romantic drama adapting Alana Nash's 1988 book titled Golden Girl, the story of Jessica Savage, which told the story of Jessica Savage. However, the film differed greatly from the book. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
An American actress who is one of the preeminent sex symbols in the 1980s and 90s. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
President Clinton.
President Bill Clinton. We've spoken about him before.
Hmm. Chinese President Jiang Zemin. I can't say it. I'm sorry.
I think the former president of the People's Republic of China, who died in November 2022. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Okay. Um, Canali tuxedo.
I'm not gonna lie, I missed that one.
Okay. I'm assuming it's a brand, a fashion brand.
Yes, it's an Italian, according to our friends at Canali.com, it's an Italian soup brand. Which also, I'm just gonna throw this out there. As I tried to indicate before, it seems odd to me that he would be looking to get his tuxedo ready to go visit his lawyer.
Yeah. Yep. Unless it was just like Yeah, I don't know. Unless he was just simultaneously thinking about the upcoming wedding, but yeah, it doesn't make sense. Leslie Stahl.
An American TV journalist who has reported on 60 Minutes since 1991. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Nielsen box.
Nielsen is a company that studies what
Mhm.
people watch and listen to. That's
Mhm.
according to our friends at Nielsen.com.
Klingon.
So I actually flipped Star Trek and Klingon because they go together.
Okay.
So Star
Yeah.
Trek is a sci-fi media franchise which started with a television series in the 1960s and since then has become a pop culture phenomenon, which includes multiple comic books, films, novels, television series, and video games. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia, and Klingon is a constructed language from Star Trek. Also, according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Mhm. Did you put gene therapy or was it
I
self-explanatory?
thought it was self-explanatory.
Yes. Sassons.
That one I missed.
Okay. I'm assuming it's a pair of jeans.
Um, yes, that sounds believable, but when you do a quick search, you find other things that are not pants.
Well, I don't know. I think it was spelled like Sassons.
Oh,
Sassons.
uh, I'm finding something different. So,
Okay. There's like a
oh,
family.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, moving on.
The next one I have
Uh,
is Connie Chung-Povich.
yeah.
She's an American news anchor and reporter who's married to Maury Povich, who we've spoken about previously. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Hmm. And then, was the last song a remake of a different song?
I actually put that under Yiddish Cup, so that's good.
Okay. Okay.
And I'll point out that Yiddish Cup has the same word at the beginning as the song, which is Yiddish Mama, which is a song written by Lou Polak and Jack Yellen, but it was made famous by Vaudeville and the Berry Sisters. And that's
Oh, okay.
to our friends at Wikipedia.
Okay. Do you have any others?
I have two others. So Sylvia makes a comment about there was a time when she remembers a time when the Jews were kept out of the Oyster Bay Country Club. Um,
Hmm.
I don't think that's a good reference because I found an article from July 1959 in the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, which, in fairness, talked about how multiple sport clubs excluded Jews and Black people. But that article stated that 90% of the members of the Pine Hollow Country Club at Oyster Bay were Jewish. So
Okay.
they should have picked a different country club. And that's according
Yeah.
to friends at jta.org. And then the last one I have is Zeigensund. That means be healthy, be well, farewell. And that's according to our friends at jewishlanguages.org.
So wait, did you already do your shit cup then?
Yep, that was all of them.
Okay. Okay. Just to be clear. I thought, yeah. Anyway, we moved on from notable New
Oh,
Yorkers.
did you have
Sorry.
any other notable New Yorkers? I'm sorry.
No, no, I was just asking if you had any other notable New Yorkers, not
Nope.
realizing we had totally switched to Yoshikop, but
Sorry.
all good.
Sorry. Connie Chunkovich was my last one as well. So
Okay. Okay. So 90s nostalgia.
um that reference in the first scene where Maggie asks about the chances of a woman over 35 but getting married, and Sylvia's like 1 out of 1,245.6. I think that is a reference, I think, to a 1986 study that concluded, and I quote, that college educated women over the age of 40 had a less than 3% chance of getting married, which led to the famous more likely to be killed by a terrorist than find a mate line.
Wow.
That's so the quote is from an article by NPR from 2006, which then continues to say, and I quote, 2 decades later, Madeline Brand reports that most of the women involved in the original study are now married and that other study findings have proven untrue. So
Oh, well, that's good.
something to be thankful for.
Hmm.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
I mean, old cars.
Yep, that was gonna be my next one. The reference to the Nielsen box seems
Uh-huh.
somewhat dated. I don't know how Nielsen does it now, but
Mhm.
because there's so much streaming, I feel like that's not catching all of the data that Nielsen would want to collect.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I mean, again, just all of the sets and everything at the TV station seemed very outdated.
Mhm,
Um, just how everything was set up. Uh, yeah. Again, like the whole how they introduced Sammy.
mhm.
um, the let's see. The use of the intercom, I just feel like there's not like intercoms aren't really used much these days.
No, we have cell phones now and texting.
Mhm. And then like the sound of the tape recorder rewinding.
Mhm,
He's like, let's review that.
right.
But yeah, anything else?
No, I think that's all I had.
Okay. Um, so unfortunately, we can't add to the kiss count or anything like that. So we're moving on to future fun.
Correct. So, as a first off, Sammy does not get committed. Brian Gumble does not commit his uncle. Instead, we will see him in 2 more episodes this season and 1 more next season. We will also meet 2 more relatives of his. Um, one is a niece, Edna, who is played by, I think, Whoopi Goldberg. She's a photographer. The other is, I want to say his grandson, who's a famous rapper who plays a rapper. Um, but everyone mistakes him a rapper as in rapper, but he's a gift rapper. Uh,
Oh,
and hilarity and stress, etc., follow that misunderstanding.
okay.
Um,
Mhm.
there's a reference. We had obviously a reference to Bill Clinton today. Bill Clinton, or really a Bill Clinton lookalike, as well as a Hillary Clinton lookalike, will appear in season 6, and they will find after Maxwell agonizes over Fran, who's going to clearly make a mistake, put her foot in her mouth, etc. Um, Maxwell then is the one who embarrasses himself, and the Clintons find Fran to be charming and invite her to go skiing with them, which prompts Fran to try to take a beginner ski class with a bunch of 5-year-olds, like little kids, and it doesn't
Mhm.
go well. So Maxwell has to teach her himself, and then they end up stranded because of an avalanche, and um, a project they were working on takes off, shall we say. Um, what else was I going to say? In just a few weeks, we are going to see yet another um, proposal for Maxwell, which does not result in marriage. And the following week, we will actually get to add to the kiss count
Yay.
because Fran and Maxwell look like they are going to. I believe they add to the kiss count. It looks like they're going to further their physical relationship, shall we say, and an allergic reaction gets in the way.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we have a lot of future fun ahead of us.
Sounds good. Okay, so then it's time to do our episode ratings. As a reminder, we rate each episode from 1 to 5 lipsticks, with 1 being lowest, 5 being the highest. But this is just for fun. We reserve the right to adjust our ratings at the end of the season. It's arbitrary. So always, if you feel like it, let us know what your personal opinion is on each episode. But this time, Debbie, you get to go first.
I was afraid of that. I hate going first. Um,
Mhm.
this was fine. This episode was fine. It's not one that I like go out of my way to rewatch. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's better than the one we talked about last time. Um, again, not great because of the things we talked about. Um, again, but better than last week. Ugh, I guess I'm going with a 3.
Okay.
Nate, hold on. Mm, yeah, okay. I'm gonna stick with 3. Your turn.
Yeah, I gave last week's a 3.5, so I'll just give this one a 3.5 as well. Um, again, it's been a struggle this season.
It really
rating.
has.
And, like, I feel like, again, a lot of my ratings just, like, depend on, like, how I was feeling when I watched the episode as well, like, if I was having a good day or not. So
Mhm.
it's very subjective, and again, I'm sure I would disagree with a lot of my scores now. Like, I would adjust them comparatively, but we can wait for that for the season wrap up.
Right. I mean, so actually, I'm just like looking at the ratings we've given the episodes this season, and there's only one time it looks like where my rating is higher than yours.
Yeah.
So this season is struggling, but a tiny other piece of future fun. We do have some really good episodes ahead of us. Not quite sure if they actually make up for the crappy episodes we have to suffer through.
Uh-huh.
We have them to look forward to.
Okay, that's good.
So
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss?
I was going to ask you that, but no. How about you?
Oh, I don't believe so.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited The Nanny. As a brief programming note, we are going to take a break for the rest of the year. We will see you in 2024. Join us then next time when we'll be discussing episode 110, Educating Fran.
If you'd like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.